Hello, welcome to my art lesson 1 to teach how to draw so that you understand how to draw pretty much. Whoa, that's a big picture. I'm getting distracted. So, today we're going to learn about how to draw a human figure dude. So, this is basic human figure dude. You see he's got some hands for circles for hands. He's got some eyes. He's kind of not good at focusing. He's got kind of an eye problem. He's mad about his eye problem. So, there you have it. Done. The tutorial's over. So, first of all, when you're drawing a human figure, you kind of got more of a. You need more space for his torso. If you were to draw, here's kind of a basic, more spatial friendly figure right here. If you were to draw a regular stick figure and him to like rest his arms for a normal like casual pose like this, he would look like a freaking stick. I mean, there'd be no room for if you were to add details on there, there'd be like no room for his actual rest of his body. You'd add like muscles, and it just kind of looks weird. So you have this room for the shoulders, obviously, and this room for the hips, because you need both of those in order to get like in order to get the business going, if you know what I mean. Anyway, this is kind of like what is needed for that sort of thing, so that way you got room for what you have. Now, drawing this stick figure itself doesn't really matter how you do it. Some people will draw kind of like a circle for right there. They'll draw an X for both of them, you know. They'll kind of draw like these two lines for the hips or whatever. It doesn't matter. Nothing's wrong, nothing's right. It's just whatever your preference is, and whatever like makes you happier to draw some stick figures, you know. When I draw them, I stay as simple as I can when I do it. So I have just these lines that make it really simple figure, and then just maybe draw lines for where the knees are, and then kind of feet for where the feet are, and elbows and stuff like that. And then afterwards, after I've got this kind of a thing in, and I want to draw better detail on there, I'll maybe draw like a circle for the rib cage, kind of this shape-ish down here, because that's kind of the shape of the bone down there. I know it's really sloppy. And then you kind of got this muscle, and then like afterwards is when I'll add muscle on there. Afterwards, pretty much afterwards, if I've said afterwards enough about the particular subject, in which case it allows me enough room to start adding mass onto the character, which I'll get to the particular mass shape in a moment. I think when you're starting out drawing, what a lot of people do, which makes it really hard on them in the end, is they start out with just one regular pose. So they start out with like a straight on pose where like you just have front and you don't see any other pose, and then they draw that over and over and over again, maybe draw different clothes for that, and doing that pretty much. And then so they get really good at drawing this front looking like perspective, and you got this guy who's like, so expressive and whatever. But my solution to that is, instead of doing that, to draw all kinds of angles as you can, even if it's simple, just keep it like really dynamic. So you got like the leg coming out here or something, really capitalizes his butt right in here. Have the other leg coming like that way, the arm flinging out straight in this direction, bent up here or something. That way you kind of have to work with really dynamic poses. The second thing I would say to start out that would be a lot more helpful in the long run than doing the straight on as well is to make sure to add 3D shapes to it. So like add a cylinder for here, a cylinder for there. That way you kind of get a sense of the spatial difference in all of the places. So you can draw squares, you can draw cylinders. Let me just draw like a couple cylinders for this guy. Kind of makes it easier to see, harder to see, whatever. like that pretty much. So if I were to transfer it to this guy, I would have to use the spatial kind of reference with it in order to fit it on there. I would have to put it at different angles, like this, for example. You got these that are coming at this angle instead of it being just straight on. In which case, it really gets your mind into the spatial sense of how the objects actually interlaps with each other, so to speak. So you kind of got his shoulder over here, more cylinders for his arm up here. So this is getting pretty messy again and kind of hard to see. And these cylinders are pretty straight on anyway. But you kind of see that like this cylinder moves this way and that one moves that way. Instead of it just being kind of a flat plane, you kind of see the difference between the shapes and where they're actually headed and things like that. So the stick figure I use is actually not very helpful, because if you were drawing like a side view of a character, you'd have like the head right here, then you'd have pretty much the stick figure doing like maybe this, give him a little bit bigger, longer hips there, and then maybe you've got kind of the arms coming down like that. It's really not helpful. It looks like the regular stick figure at this point, which is why a lot of people kind of do different shapes than I do. Of course, when I do this, I keep in mind that the shapes are going to be changing as I'm coming this way and adding kind of depth to them, adding like a nice ass to this guy, because I've drawn enough that that's just the stick figure I'm comfortable with. That way when I add mass on there, it's not going to change the actual form of the character and completely ruin it, but instead that it's still going to work for what you want, what you need, whatever. So if it was easier for you to work with, then you could just draw a stick figure that was started at this kind of base anyway. So when you were drawing him, you had like this, you had a circle here, kind of maybe it tilt there, draw a circle there, and then kind of get an idea of where the legs are going to go from that. It would make it easier that way from different views. You know, it's just about what you want to do versus what's really helpful. And then as long as you like try as diverse poses as you can from there, then a lot of it comes pretty easy. So then we'll kind of move on to muscle-ish structures, so you kind of get an idea. So I'm going to try to draw a little bit more of a detailed character here to make it easier. I understand a lot of spatial difference between each of the limbs and things like that. I'm just going to move down here so I can get it going. There's not really a huge zoom feature on this program. By the way, the program I'm using is called My Paint. I found it free online, just a random art program that had some interesting features to play with. So I think his feet are way too big proportionate to his body. Yeah, because I can't see the rest of it, but it doesn't matter right now. Usually what you would do is like work on kind of like a thumbnail picture and then kind of move from that thumbnail to closer detail, so that way you like we're keeping in mind like what the shape of different objects, comparison like with the size of the foot compared to like the size of the head would be proportionate rather than out of proportion. Something to keep in mind. Okay, so first of all, you obviously have the rib cage kind of going down like this, and the rib cage actually kind of in the front has this kind of like house shape, this hill shape. It goes upwards like that to have that kind of a shape to it. There's also these bones down in here that kind of peak right there and go up to the shoulder, the collarbone. Yeah, I don't actually know the name of all of the muscles, so don't give me a hard time. I just draw them. I'm not a hospital guy. I can't remember the name of those guys. Doctors. I'm not a doctor. Okay. So then you got kind of more of a shape here for the shoulders, you know. which is whatever. Okay, so when you're drawing the pec muscle, you kind of got it going down like this, and then it's actually got kind of a point right there. I mean, some people's pecs are different shapes. You have to remember that is all muscles are different shapes, first of all. So, yeah, whatever. You kind of got a peak right here, so that it kind of, and then this kind of folds up and comes back in this direction. I don't know if you can see that. And oh yeah, I got this handy feature. That's freaking awesome. I press X and I can just quickly change my color. That's really cool. Very handy. This muscle actually transfers into the shoulder muscles, so if you actually were following the flow of the muscle, I think it does this, and then it kind of flows into the shoulder muscle, and it's really part of it. You'd really be able to see if, like, you had the guy's shoulder right here bent upwards, which for the purposes of this we don't, and you'd have like the shoulder doing that it would actually really mix in with the pec, and you might not even have like a transition line there. You would just have the rest of it with this muscle and that muscle going this way, this muscle down here, and then the other pec would kind of be a different shape because it was not so stretched. Then the neck, head, there you go. So we continue. We kind of got this kind of muscle here. This muscle is interesting because like at a side view, I would say if you got this arm coming down to the elbow, first you've got the shoulder arm, which is kind of a circular, then you got the second bicep part, which is actually two muscles. It's like two kind of muscles, and this muscle on the back side near the back is actually kind of upper, kind of like that, but it doesn't hugely matter right now. It's just kind of, they're two shapes right there. And then this one, what I like to do to really get this sense of the shape is actually draw another circle right here, and then just connect a thick line right there, instead of trying to do a large teardrop and remembering that it's up there and then drawing the hand on top of it, instead just doing a circle. I don't know, it kind of looks better to me. It doesn't really matter as long as you remember that the bulge of the muscle is actually up higher, closer to the elbow. So if I were to repeat that over here, you kind of got it upper, closer to the elbow, like that. Then you've got this muscle, which you can kind of see the double on this side a lot better, kind of doing that right there. And then this part would flip over and connect on the outer side of the muscle. So like you can see over here, if I just erase this a little bit so it's a little bit more clear, this muscle wraps inwards into that part right there, into the middle in between those two muscles, which would be right here from our drawing, and on the other side of the arm for this side. So, dang it, go back to black please. So we'll move on, kind of moving down to the hip area. The hip area, you kind of got this shape kind of going on. You got this kind of, what I like to do is I like to make the hips a little bit wider, make the waist a little bit skinnier, and then make the chest a little bit wider again. So you kind of got the pecs in there or whatever. You get the shape of these kind of muscles coming down like that before you have the actual, like, what are these called? The abs. I remember what you called. So you get the ab muscles kind of in here. Now there's a couple of different ways that you can draw these. First of all, you can draw them kind of like pretty straight, depending on the muscle group how you like to draw your muscles. So you can draw them pretty straight. This is super sloppy, my bad. And kind of you got some abs looking type stuff looking right there, and that looks absolutely horrible. Or you can draw them kind of more tipped upwards, where they do this kind of a thing, where they kind of, the front or the middle of it is tipping upwards, so you got kind of the abs shaped like that. And also you can do the same thing except with them facing down, which is kind of like a look I really like, which means you have to start with kind of these small bits right in here and work like this as you go down. And even in here you can change the definition of like how you're doing the muscles. So for example, you could do the muscle like tilted right here and then kind of straight a little bit and then go back up again. I mean, this is kind of a detailed muscle. Or you can just like do a straight piece. It just depends. This is just supposed to be super basic, so you can kind of get the idea of a figure going. So then you got the room for the junk right there. You got this muscle coming down to the knee, so the kneecap itself looks like a squarish kind of thing. This leg is more of at an angle, so this leg's facing this way, whereas this leg's kind of facing towards the screen. So the leg muscle itself kind of becomes a lot skinnier once it gets to the knee, because first of all you got this kind of big muscle going here with this kind of tendon coming across there, so all you'd really see is like kind of this at this side, it coming out like that. A really good reference for like leg muscles and things like that, or even muscles in general, is definitely Dragon Ball Z. Those guys got some huge old muscles, and it's awesome reference. This is like where I got a lot of my leg definition, although I still think I kind of suck at legs, but who cares. So you kind of got shapy legs like that, and then the the shins, whatever, are similar to the forearm, in which they have this shape up here and then they get skinnier down here, so like that. But the shin also, you have to remember that it does that on the sides and it does that on the back, but on the front of the shin it's actually straight. So it only does that on the back and on the sides. So then the muscle kind of connects like this, so you'll be able to see kind of the shape like that. And then on here you'd see like a line, so you got two big bumps. You got this big bump on this side and this big bump on that side. This side you can only see one big bump, and if I were to draw it from the back, you got the inverted knee right there, then you got the back of the calf right here, the back of the foot right there, with continuation of the foot, maybe some ankles. The muscle itself kind of interjoins with two like that, so you got two big shapes in there, kind of looking big and shapy, whatever. And you got the rest of this. The foot, though, and I keep pressing X instead of space. The foot is, for the most part, is a little bit more difficult. For now, all you need to know is like add kind of a shape here. I think adding a separate shape for the toe would actually be really helpful, because it allows you to, instead of be drawing feet like this, where you got characters looking like that and it just looks weird, instead you kind of identify the shape as being different, so you kind of have room for the toes. But again, it's just preference. It's depending on what you want to do. And then you kind of got this shape here. These are actually offset. I forget which one's higher, either the inside or the outside. As long as you do one higher than the other, then it looks pretty good. I think that the inner one's higher than the lower one. Yeah, something like that. You got that bone in there, kind of looks like that. It's shorter on this side and taller on that side, although not huge enough to really make a significant difference and all that. So if I were to draw the foot, to better understand the shape of the foot, if I were to drop the foot from the bottom side, you're going to have this small bulge over here. It goes inwards right there, and then comes outwards right here, and then you got the toes, big toe, and then the smaller toes kind of come like that ish shape. So that's your shape right there. So this spot right here would be the place where it actually went in on this, and this would be the outer side of it. So kind of gets you the idea. Most shoes that you'll see though have kind of this small thing like this that goes down. It does like the cowboy boot thing where it has the tip, whatever. But it has this small like section, this small square on it. Most shoes have that. If you like look on shoes, then you'll kind of see that on most shoes that you'll draw. Or they'll have kind of like a transition right at that point, where you have the back point being a lot shorter in length than the front point. And you got kind of boot right there. Kind of looks pretty good. Okay, so let's move back up here. The neck. Okay, so the neck is an interesting thing. I have a lot of trouble with the neck at first. The neck isn't quite the thickness of the head. Depending on how strong you want your character to be, you make the neck a lot thicker. So you kind of had this regular neck. It connects to the body in kind of a circular motion. So if I were at the side view like this, and I had the head here, I'm filling up the screen with everything, then it would actually connect the bot to the body at the, kind of the same angle like this, kind of at an angle. So you have the body over here. So if I were to draw this at more of a understandable reference, this would be the body right here, with kind of like your bones here, your pecs right there, and your neck would connect onto it the way this is right here. So you'd have your neck coming up like that, connected to your head, and then your head way up here, like that. But then even that will still look weird unless you also add the back muscles that connect up at an angle at the back right there to make it look a little bit more proper. So if I were to draw a guy real quick, you'd have this kind of a shape for his head, and then you draw the neck kind of in there afterwards, and then draw the kind of rib cage on there. So this is a pretty buff looking dude right there, so it kind of gets you your idea. After that, you have these kind of thick lines that are part of your innards that go to these points right here. So obviously you wouldn't draw this point right here, this little connecting line like I did. You would only draw like the parts that are kind of visible. If I can erase some of this crap in here real quick, make it a little bit more clean. I always draw like this, super messy. I have half of my work is like cleaning up my own stuff and making room for crap like that. So it makes it really frustrating when I'm drawing with a pen on an actual page instead of digitally. But, you know, I'll get over it. So this kind of, you wouldn't actually see any of the neck connecting lines, but that's kind of the general sense you kind of getting for that. The head itself, when you're going on the head, you kind of have two shapes. A lot of people draw a perfect circle. This is the side view, by the way. And you kind of have the chin come off and connect at the very center. So remember this, the chin connects at the very center of the face. So if I were to draw it at side like that, and I draw the upper oval for, here, let me draw this again, that looks terrible. Go over here. Hey, my first drawings. You draw the circle right here, you draw the chin that's coming off of it at an angle like that, and if the chin connects here, then that means this right here is the center side of your head. So it's this point on your head. The chin will connect through, right through this half like that. So your guy will be looking this way, and the chin will connect right in the exact half. But then, not according to this upper circle, but according to the head as a whole, your eyes will always be in the center of your head. So if I were to draw the eyes on there right now, the eyes would go right there. The nose kind of would go in a general place in here. The lips in between the mouth and the chin. Usually the chin is a lot bigger than like for spatial sense, usually the mouth goes higher and the chin gets a greater space than the space between the nose and the upper lip. Does that make sense? It would be helpful if you could answer me when I asked a question like that. So then the ear also goes right in the center of the head. So again, on this guy up here, the ear fits right on the center. So the eyes and the ears are always exactly aligned like that. So if I were to draw eyes and ears on this guy, I would draw the eyes right there because that's the center. I mean, of course, I'm cheating most of the time. I don't draw this first circle and then draw the chin connecting to it. It's just kind of a general thing to keep in mind. See, I kept that in mind when drawing the head so that I knew that the back of the head was kind of a different shape. So if I were to redraw it, I would just kind of do that and know that the general shape of the head accordingly. So if I were to do this, I could remember that that is what the back of the head looks like, and then just draw the neck on there afterwards, I guess, kind of. Then his ear would be right there. Anyway, the ear is aligned with the eyes. That way, if I were to add glasses onto this guy, then the glasses just go straight back and rest on the ear. So the ear, the top part of the ear, aligns with the top part of the eye. Exactly. So that's just the very main things to keep in mind when you're drawing your guy. The eyes go in the center, and the ears also go in the center, like that. After that, it makes it a lot easier when you start to draw the eyebrows and the nose and the lips. Make the person happy, whatever. Because they all kind of go from the base of where the eyes are. Next, I really want to press on movements. That sounds dirty. Or the movement of different joints. So we'll start with we'll kind of start with what we got with the hands here. So most of the time when I'm drawing a figure and I draw like a random guy right in here, and he's got kind of a, okay, that's terrible, let me try again. I kind of got a guy here. You got the general stick figure shape of him right there. If I were to draw a hand on here, I wouldn't actually hugely be concentrated on details yet, because I haven't drawn the details of anything else yet. So first of all, when drawing a hand, you have this first shape right here, and you got kind of this big bulge for the thumb. If this is your left hand, for example, then you kind of got the thumb coming off there. You got your pointer finger, your middle finger, your ring finger, and then your pinky. Kind of doing that. You kind of got a shape like this, but you've also got another bulge on that side, which you really don't see unless I were to do the hand at the angle that you usually don't see, where the thumb's on the far side. The thumb will come down further, but you'll still see like this bulge right there. So let me draw this a little bit more detail so you can kind of get the sense of what this looks like. With the pinky coming right here, the other finger coming here, the other finger. This is the side view, not focused on the side that has the thumb, whereas the side that has the thumb kind of, remember, this is also like triangles is the shape. Like if you're looking upwards, this one's like a triangle this way. If you're looking sideways, this one's a triangle this way. If you're looking this way, this one's kind of a triangle that way. And, you know, I keep the triangle idea in mind. Like I drew a triangle down there for this guy here. But the thumb side would have just like a bigger kind of shape there, whatever. The thumb side has that big bulge right there, but also so does the other side. So that kind of something to keep in mind. But when I'm doing a basic like figure just to get kind of the form of the character going, all I have to do is kind of draw a basic shape for what I want the hand doing. So like I want these fingers to kind of be doing that more. So I won't even draw a lot of detail. I'll just draw like a very basic shape, because everything else on my stick figure is very basic shape. It's not like really detailed head, like this is completely out of proportion. This is just to kind of get the motion of the character down. So now that I've got this going, I would draw like whatever kind of shapes for each of the pieces. Now you see I change this into two shapes so that you got the toe right down there, and you've got this upper part. That way when you're doing the kind of the function that would relate them as being at different connections, then you'll be able to see, because they transition at different points. Like the toe transitions at this point right there. It transitions at that point. So that's why I would put that as two different shapes. Yeah, so this is about hands. Kind of for really simple figures like this, where you're just trying to get the motion down. Then once you got the motion down, you do a little bit more detail, and you kind of block in the actual details and proportions of the character. You kind of got a little bit more of the actual form down, and then once you do even more detail as you get to like the hand per se, then you would be actually concerned with what the hand's actually doing, and you would kind of follow what the actual motion of the hand would be doing. So I kind of draw some fingers on here afterwards, kind of doing whatever, draw a thumb on there. Kind of, since this is such thick lines on such a small plane, it's kind of hard to really see what that space in a sense would be doing, so makes it difficult kind of to really draw details on that small part, really, kind of, yeah. So I also, before I really get too far out of my way, this guy's junk is really big. Let me kind of shrink this guy's junk down. I mean, that's horrifying to do to a man, but it just looks odd being that big. Anyway, I also want to touch on I also want to draw the character at the side view to kind of give you an idea of the proportions from all the different sides. Now you see I drew the shoulders too high right here. The shoulder bone definitely can do this, by the way. So you have this kind of thing going on, kind of hunch his shoulders up, and it can also go down like that. So you have more of a sad or mellow look to the character, whatever. So more of a tense, more of a relaxed or mellow. And you kind of have the in-between. So this guy, I had the balls too high on the balls on the character, so I just had to move them down to make him look more mellowed out. Kind of, so you got this kind of shape going, you got this kind of shape going. A lot of the time when I do this, I end up making my character lean seriously forward. That's fine, and I mean, as long as you can tell that your character's doing that. Kind of get a basic shape here going, basic good butt shape here going, kind of get this. I'm gonna do a little bit better for the legs, kind of get that, this going, got a foot, kind of got a foot going ish, get this other foot. And also, like, a lot of the time I'll be drawing and I'm like, okay, I want to draw and I know what my initial goal is, but how do I get there? I mean, what am I supposed to draw? Where do I start? And I try not to get too fed up with these thoughts, because when you have thoughts like that, man, this sounds like devious kind of thing going on. When you have evil thoughts in your mind, you just try to block out those thoughts. Basically, the way to get around that is just to draw something. And as you do it wrong, you'll figure out where you actually want to start by your mistakes of doing it wrong, and you'll be able to restart. So like, if this character looked completely bad and I was just like, oh damn, well, I got so far, I mean, it doesn't matter, just redo the character again. The second time will always look better than the first time. So again, I draw a triangle for the hand. Draw this kind of upwards like that. That's way too far. Draw a triangle for the hand. And now let's get into proportions. Well, proportions are there. Let's get into muscle structure. First, you got this collarbone again. So let me kind of get rid of this blackish stuff all over this going on. Go back to this place, and then I'll get rid of this a little bit so you can kind of get the idea. So then you got the pec muscles kind of doing this. Now, it's all about kind of 3D space. You don't have to do so much detail when just trying to draw a lot of figures. And right now, probably as like a very beginning artist, all you'd want to do is kind of just draw a lot of figures, trying to get the idea of the 3D space instead of a lot of proportions. Now you see, I'm completely redrawing the head. That's because the head comparison to the body was totally off proportion. But like, those were not my set lines that I needed to follow. They were just guides to get me started, and as I saw it was wrong, I corrected it. I'm going. It just, the workflow, you should keep in mind. I'm really gassy. I hope you can't hear me farting. That would just be gross for a video. So then again, I've got this kind of shape going on in the back. So the back and these kind of triangle muscles on here, what they're doing is from the side view, if I were to draw the shoulders here and this shoulder there, the back is actually kind of got this shape going on, where the back is kind of folded out, getting thick this way, you know, whereas it's leaving kind of a plane where it continues off for this stuff back here, and after that is where the neck actually connects on there. Wow, this guy looks like a total turtle. It's kind of interesting looking. So that is kind of what these muscles are doing. These muscles are from the back, so as I would draw them like this, I would change the shape of this one accordingly to this one compared to the angle that it would be at. So that's kind of the idea behind that. And then again, I would draw this kind of shape up here, and then this kind of a shape over here. This shape, blah, 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 at this side. This is actually turned into a front view side again. Let me try this again, except the actual side view. So my goal is side view. Let me try to keep that goal in mind. This guy is very, let me change this line. This guy is very kind of doing this, kind of, and then kind of got this head coming forward more like, got the neck connected. That looks terrible. Got more of the neck connecting like this-ish. Man, I'm sorry, this is really sloppy. I kind of work with it as I go because I'm not actually sure what's wrong and what's right about it more specifically until I start drawing it. So, okay, so this is kind of the shape that I got for this. So for the body itself, you kind of got this straight shape, you got the pec shape, kind of the rib shape, the abs, and then you got your front where you've got the goodies right there, and then you've got the back which comes way in, then you got the butt that comes out. The butt, it let me come back to the butt. And then you got this, whoa, that's a really thin knee. Let me make the knee a little bit thicker. Kind of got this going from the side view. And then you got this. Oh my gosh. I am just doing everything wrong. So this kind of, you got more of a rounded shape. You see what I'm doing is kind of like I'm keeping the rounded shapes on the back and then keeping the more straighter shapes on the front. So that extrudes way too far. A little bit dramatic there. This is better. So also he's got kind of a flat butt. So anyway, you got the shoulders that would connect right here, you know. So you've got this kind of shape for the side. You've really got kind of this guy, and he does this. Now this is absolute really nice posture. In fact, he might be leaning back a little bit. So let me connect the chin on there a little bit better. So that looks horrible. And make this a little bit thicker. So that looks a little bit better. So that's kind of your idea for the side view, is like it really does this pretty much. So I hope that's helpful. Let's continue. For this, it's kind of really, you have to keep the shape in mind. If I were to draw lines that come across here, I would draw the center lines doing this because the muscle extrudes out right there. It goes pretty flat for here and then goes back in. So it kind of does that. So if I were to draw a grid across it, and then for the sides, it does the same thing, kind of goes out, goes in like that. So if I were to make it to a lovely waffle, it would kind of be doing this kind of basic thing to give you the idea of the shape, to keep the shape and the 3D form in mind. That way when you're drawing it at like any angle that you would want to, you're just keeping the 3D shapes in your brain. So most of the time when I get to this point, I'll save the abs for later because the abs can be kind of tedious to draw, so to speak. And so what I'll do is when I'm connecting the legs, which helps me a lot of the time, is actually go up like this and connect them as if they were on more of a connection. So if I had the hip point here and I had like the legs coming down here, I would do this, kind of make, I guess, the underwear connection, and then draw the legs connecting to the hips rather than being a separate entity. And if you need to connect things differently after that, then you definitely would. So with this in mind, the bottom of your hip area will end like way down here, but that's definitely not anywhere close to where the actual belt's going to be. The actual belt is going to rest here if you're good posture. It's going to rest here if you're a little bit more open posture, and the lower you go, a little bit more sexy, kind of resting the belt down here, you know. You get kind of like these ab muscles, these muscles here showing, really shows that you're kind of what the kind of thing you have in mind is, you know. Whatever. Kind of like you got a lot of the abs kind of showing afterwards. So again, kind of this shape here, this shape here. As I would get to the hands, I would kind of draw more of a thing. Also, proportion of the hands. Very, very helpful thing to know. With the proportion of the hands, when you're drawing a hand, your hand is going to be about the size of your face. So you get this little circle and draw it over your face. So you kind of get this, and this is the character's face, right? So with this face shape in mind, well, not the shape, the face size, the general size, you're going to say your hand is going to be about the size of your face. So you would draw the thumb on there. You draw the finger, another finger, another finger, another finger. And that's how big your hand's going to be. And as far as proportions, probably a lot of people have probably told you that your average guy is about like 6 heads tall. And that makes him 6 feet tall, because I guess the head's like a foot tall. When FT. But, you know, the hand's definitely not a foot long. But remember, it's not the size of your head. It's not the size of the head. It's the size of the face. So it reaches the width of your face. If you held up your hand to your face like this, you probably can't see what I'm doing because I don't have a webcam. Then you would see that it's about the size of your face. It kind of gives you a reference. So if I were to redraw this hand right here, and I were to draw it like this size, I would know that it's kind of too small, because once I got the details in there, I'd be like, oh crap, this hand compared to the face looks horrible, space-wise. So I'm going to redraw it and draw it more like this size. Also, I'm told that your fist is the size of your heart, so if you ever got to the point where you're drawing someone's heart like that, is that on the right side? I have no idea. Then you would know that the fist would be the same size. You'd kind of understand what size to make the hand. So you're welcome. Those are helpful tips. So the last thing that I want to show you, because I think I got basic muscle structure down for the sides and stuff like that. The last thing I kind of want to show you is poses and body language for the pose. So I'm just going to represent this with stick figures because they can be very expressive in the way that they stand accordingly. So first of all, you've got your very casual pose, right? If I were to extend this pose and make it a little bit more of a power pose, I would spread out the legs like that, but he still doesn't look like he's ready for battle, you know? He's not like got that serious look on him that makes him totally ready to duke it out with people. He still looks like he's kind of casual for the legs. So, second thing we're going to try is bending the legs. That's the trick. If you bend the legs, there, now he looks like he's ready for it. He's like, alright, I'm ready for battle. He kind of, it makes the pose more agile. He looks like Popeye. No, so I screwed up that eye. So this kind of makes him a little bit more ready. And that's true for the actual kind of pose you got going for the actual character. When you draw a little bit more of a serious look to him, is when you've got the knees bent like that, you've got kind of that very ready-ish pose looking, especially when you don't like rest the other arm part. So if I lift this arm up like that and bend it, and then kind of have his fingers looking ready, kind of like that, and then have this arm come out like this and have it be ready, he looks like more of an action pose, like he's ready for something to happen. Whereas if I were to take this and, for example, put his arm kind of downwards like that, and then this is going the wrong direction, and then just kind of leaning there like this, not going that way, just kind of resting there, then it'll look like he's kind of resting this arm but lifting this arm. Kind of gives you an idea of the body posture. So first of all, your body will bend two ways. It'll bend backwards, so you kind of got a guy leaning backwards. It'll bend forwards, so you kind of got a guy leaning forwards like this. And so let me give you an example of someone sitting. This is a really good example of body posture. So if you got someone sitting straight up like this, and they've got their legs bent kind of like that, they're like, okay, I'm ready. He looks like he's very, like he just sat down maybe, or that he's very engaged with whatever he's listening to. Or you have kind of more of a leaned back look. Depending on where you have your head looking, this will really change the kind of the idea of the posture. So this is kind of more leaning back. It looks like he's just puffing his chest out more. So this kind of makes him look more like if there was something behind him, that he would be resting his arms on that. But if he had his arms down, for example, then it would just be like this. Looks like he's like just breathing in. He's taking a big breath, or he's holding his breath, or something like that. Whereas if I were to delete his arms here real quick, if I were to cause his arms to kind of be leaning on something like that, then it would look like he's a lot more casual and kind of leaning on something. So that's it pushing back. But if we were to take the same legs, kind of, you got your same hips, and lean him forward like this instead, so you're gonna get him leaning like this, with his hip, with his collarbone again kind of curved downwards, and then put that leg right along here, kind of looking this way, like that, and then kind of rest his arms down here. He's probably sat here for a while. He's much more tired. He's a lot more chill about what he's doing, and it's like there's the difference between sitting straight and slouching. So a lot of people, when they sit, they have the table really far away from them, so they have their chair like way over here, and then their plate is right there, and then they're like, when they sit up straight, they're like, no, I can't reach my food. So what they'll do is they'll lean forward like this, and then they'll reach their food. They'll be able to rest their shoulders right here. So this is a very wake up kind of way to eat your food. So you got one hand here, you're eating your food, you're leaning forward, kind of like that. It looks like he's just got one big boob on him. But the proper posture, absolute proper posture, depending on the body language you want for your character, would be you have the chair actually scooted inwards towards the table, so that you can do this and actually lift up the spoon to your head like that, and have this right here, and then maybe rest your arm on the table afterwards. So you kind of got more of this kind of shape going, with the rest of his leg coming down this way. So that kind of gives you an idea of the back posture and what that'll do. So then we come back to these, and we kind of see that this guy, his back posture is kind of leaning forward, so he's more of a slouch, he's more being chill about it. Whereas if we wanted more of a demanding character, then we'd have his chest like puff way out like this, and then his head be like turned in like that, maybe flex up some muscles, have his arms lift up like this, and stretch out his legs like that, and it would cause him to be a lot more like have a lot more strut to his pose, a lot more confidence to his pose, I guess. Whereas if we were to put the arms in like this and pull the legs inward closer like this, or perhaps even like bend his legs, then that's a very introverted pose. It's kind of like you're hiding yourself, sort of. And you'll probably see a lot of actual people do this kind of pose, where they'll just like huddle into themselves, kind of like Gollum. Well, I do this pose actually quite a lot. Um, you kind of have this kind of a thing going where you have him just hugging himself. He got his arms in here. He's got his legs kind of through here to his feet and his toes down here for that shape, you know. So you got the introverted pose comparatively to the extroverted pose, and then you've got kind of the relaxed muscle pose where you would have something just like maybe one part a little bit more flex and then the rest of it just kind of resting. Got kind of arms just hanging like that. You kind of have the body just going down like that. Much more casual kind of pose. So yeah, that gives you basic form and basic idea. So again, if we come back to the absolute simplicity of things, then your whole goal right now is just to draw like a basic stick figure in lots of different random poses to kind of get a feel and idea of what the different poses will look like, so that you get used to them. So, and then after you have that going, kind of just draw shapes. Draw the shape of your character on there. Try different angles. You can even do like squares if you want. You can do circles, do cylinders, whatever kind of shape. Just so you can understand the 3D space. So you understand that this leg's going this way, and this leg has to go in this way. That way, if I were to draw a guy, and I have his arms crossing like this, and then his body coming this way, that if I were to draw actual cylinders on there, I would see that they would interlap, and one would have to go over the other, and it would kind of, you would have to make room for that 3D space like that, and you would kind of have to move that block back because of that. So the arm's going this way, whatever, just so you can get an idea of the 3D space. So the body is definitely a very complex shape, and when you see me drawing like this stuff over here and this right here and like this guy over here, it's just memory of like knowing what that complex shape does at different angles and what it looks like at different angles and things like that. So it'd be like, for example, if I were drawing a key and I knew the exact shape of the key, and I could draw it from memory each time because I knew the shape of it. And that's all you're trying to get down, is like getting the idea that it's a 3D object and you're drawing it in a 3D space, and kind of how you're supposed to fit it into that 3D space and understand it as a 3D object. So that's your goal. And remember that all this kind of stuff that I've been showing you won't actually really apply to your brain unless you're hands-on, unless you're drawing it. I mean, if you look at this and remember that, all of it, that's great. You probably won't, though, because that's the way the human mind works. So hopefully this was pretty helpful and not too long, like I'm assuming it is. And yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you later. Bye.